How did we go from this to this? When I was a kid, I grew up watching Star Trek The Next Generation. And on this show, the captain of the ship kind of represents all the best traits of mankind. He's honest, he's brave, he doesn't have a big ego, he's empathetic, he's generous, he's kind, and so on and so forth. So the whole point of the show is that someday we get to a point where there's no need for money, nobody's sick, we all work just to better ourselves and explore the universe and meet other alien races. But the way things are today, does anyone really believe that that's where we're headed? I mean, with this idiot that is in office, and sometimes I wonder, is he an idiot or is he just an absolute genius and he's just playing us all exactly as we need to be played for him to be president? Because when you look at it like Trump versus Hillary, or whoever else he might have been up against or will be up against in 2020. Maybe he's just saying whatever needs to be said for him to get elected or reelected. Maybe he's just that smart that he knows that saying racist, ignorant stuff is what people want to hear, and that's who people will vote for. I mean, clearly it worked, right? I mean, does he even believe half the stuff that he says? And I used to like Trump back when he was on The Apprentice. It was one of my favorite shows that I watched. I mean, obviously, a lot of people would agree with me. It was one of the primetime top television rated shows that was out there. So obviously, a lot of people liked Trump, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican at that point. However, whatever it is he believes now, whether he actually believes what he's saying or just saying it to stay in office or to get in office or what have you, a lot of his policies are taking us backwards. And I'm really wondering, where are we headed at this point? I kind of think about it sometimes, and I think, being intelligent, it's kind of just a byproduct of survival. Maybe that's what we needed at the time in order to survive, was to be intelligent. But in today's world, you don't really need to be intelligent to survive. When you watch the movie Idiocracy, and that movie points it out perfectly well. We're keeping the weak strong now. You look at these shows with people that are just vastly overweight, and they would never survive back in the olden days. So I wonder, where are we headed? Are we headed to a Star Trek future, or are we headed backwards? The clock is ticking. We're using up a lot of the resources. We're destroying the Earth. We're going to be overpopulated soon. There is a finite window for us to be able to get off this planet and go to wherever it is we're trying to get to. So I wonder, with now Trump at the helm, is this the turning point where we start to go backwards on the downslide? You could also look at it like, for every bad thing that happens, something really good happens. Maybe we have Trump, but then after Trump, we get something, the complete opposite, who's much better. It takes us 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So let's talk about Trump as a person, though. I mean, him next to Captain Picard of the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek, it's just, I can't even believe he's a real person, Trump, because he just represents all the worst traits of mankind. He reminds me of this kid I used to know growing up. This guy who worked for my dad. His son was this fat, spoiled piece of shit kid named Casey. He had all the latest and greatest toys, and he was just such a little brat. A real punchable face this kid had. Trump is the grown-up version of that kid. Just a fat, spoiled brat that somehow, got some power or money or whatnot, and he just, Okay, here's a story about Trump that I think just really sums up exactly how I feel about the guy. During the campaign trail, he starts doing this whole drain the swamp thing, drain the swamp, which is, a great slogan. And he had me, my ears perked up when he said that. Of course, I didn't believe it, but, my ears perked up. So he keeps saying it, blah, 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 he gets elected. And immediately after getting elected, he gives a talk at one of his rallies to all his supporters. And he's telling the story of that phrase. So he said he started saying it at his rallies. And after a while, he's like, well, wow, people are actually believing this. Maybe I ought to say it like I actually mean it. He's telling this literally to his supporters. The whole thing, his slogan on his campaign trail was complete nonsense. That somebody told him that he had no intention of actually keeping that promise of doing that. And in my mind, whatever, they were fooled. They voted him in, fine. But at that point, you would think if they had even one brain cell in their head, hearing the man say that he just was completely lying to them and had no intention of doing that, how can they still support the guy? I mean, in that moment, I would be like, okay, you fooled, you got me. That's it. These idiots are out there just like, okay. So, one more thing I want to talk about on this note is, a lot of people compare Trump to Hitler, right? And I'm going to make a comparison there right now that you might find interesting. If you've ever seen the movie The Butterfly Effect, It's based on an actual scientific principle, which is basically very small things have huge drastic changes on the world. It's called the butterfly effect because a butterfly flapping its wings in, say, one side of the world can cause a hurricane on the other side of the world. So I'm sure most of you guys probably already know that out here, so I'm going to get to the point. If Hitler had never existed, or if Hitler was defeated earlier or whatnot, if it had played out any other way, you and I would not be sitting here right now. You know, there's a lot of good things that inadvertently had come from that very bad thing happening. Because again, the butterfly effect, if somehow that had played out even the tiniest bit differently, the whole world would have played out differently 50 years later. And you and I wouldn't even be sitting here having this conversation. So you can kind of think about it like, if we erase Hitler, like we wouldn't even exist. So what good things is Trump bringing right now? I met my wife after Trump was elected. So I have to wonder if he wasn't elected and things had played out differently, maybe she and I never even would have met. And she is the absolute love of my life. So I would say, you know, as bad as this may seem, who knows, maybe there's inadvertent good things that are also coming from it. So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens in 2020. I mean, if nothing else, it'll be entertaining to see Trump get up there and debate some people again. I'm very much looking forward to that. All right, guys, see you later.